Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cybersecurity Recruiter podcast. Today, I'm joined by Alise Barron. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks. I hope you are.
Yeah, no, nice to see you again. We've had probably 3 chats in about 3 months because we were initially talking about the pod, and then we had a false start, which was either, we'll say it was both our faults. I can't remember whose it was. And third time lucky, we got there.
Yes, we made it.
Cool. But yeah, no, it's nice to see you. And for everyone listening, me and Elise have just been reminiscing about old times at different companies and talking about fun memories, haven't we? It's been quite nice.
We've been recruiting and cybersecurity. Yeah, it's like memories.
Do you know what's funny? I won't mention the candidate's name we were just talking about, but it's funny how like I mentioned it, like the security community is so small. Like for everyone listening, I mentioned a certain company name and Elise went, who was it? And then I said the person's name and you went, I know him. And it's like everyone knows everyone in the security community, which is great. I quite like it. If you're doing the job properly, it's great.
Yeah, we always say it's like a really big, small world in security. So respectfully, it's awesome, but you also have to be really careful because you might be working with or for somebody in another job. So you just want to keep those bridges strong.
Yeah, I've had it before when I've been to, because you know what the security folks are like, everyone's professionally paranoid and stuff like that. I've invited people on the pod and they've gone, I don't know. And then I've pointed them to the YouTube channel. They've gone, I went to school with her and I went to school with him as well. And I'm like, and then they're like, okay, I'll come on. You're obviously like a real person and all that. Yeah, no, it can be helpful.
Yeah, I like to call it a healthy paranoia. I think it's respectable in this community to be a bit paranoid. If you're not, it's all good.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to do a short intro for those of you that don't know Elise. She started off life in hospitality as a bartender in Leeds further, and then she entered the world of recruitment as a recruiter back in 2011. Started off life at Experis Finance, progressed very nicely there, got promoted on multiple occasions, all the way up to recruiting director. Elise also spent time at Cylance. She was there for a long time as engagement manager and also senior engagement manager. She was also at Cylance Guard as an operation program manager, and then at Cyvatar, did very well there. Again, was promoted on multiple occasions from director to VP level, and then to VP operations and head of product, and then also finally promoted again to COO. And Elise, you are currently at ReversingLabs, and that's a fairly new position that you started. And yeah, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it was an interesting progression indeed. You said all of them pretty much right. Experis was the place where I was recruiting. I know that one was a fun one to say. It was Jefferson Wells, and it was acquired by Manpower Group. So Manpower changed the name to Experis. And then, I worked at Blackberry through an acquisition. So Blackberry acquired Cylance. And so that's how I got the role at Blackberry before coming to Cyvatar.
Okay, cool. So I've done you an intro, but I always start with what's a day in the life like? What do you get up to? What's a day in the life of Elise as COO? What goes down?
I do my stretches and get that mind going slowly while I get ready to wake up my 8-year-old. He tends to be my focus in the morning. And so I love being in the world that I work in. Obviously, in cybersecurity, one of the most beautiful parts about it is we respect a remote lifestyle. You can pretty much work from anywhere. So that does enable me to be able to give that time to my family in the morning. And I get my son ready and get him off to school. So I'm able to have our little chats and jam session on the way to school. And that's always fun. And then, then I slide into work. Like I hit the grocery store first, and because I'm on the East Coast and a lot of my colleagues are not on the East Coast, so they tend to not be awake yet. So that's good because I can just get my coffee and get settled, get my mind, catch up on the emails and figure out what we have going on for the day before the chaos begins. Because one of the other beautiful parts of cybersecurity is you have to expect the unexpected. So you may go into your day with it fully planned and it will likely change, especially as an executive in over operations in cybersecurity, because you tend to have your hands involved in everything. So every great news comes your way and every escalation comes your way. I get to spend my day solving puzzles. That's how I look at it. And that's one of my other passions in life, other than my family and my work, is puzzles. I love puzzles. And cybersecurity gives you plenty of them. And then again, get through the day, a lot of meetings, a lot of calls, sitting at my desk. I'm that person who brings all my drinks to my desk and all my food for the day
Okay.
because it probably won't
Yeah.
leave. Then you do the mom thing again at night. So we go to the ninja zone. I got my little ninja warrior. So I get to do that after school hours, watch him jumping around the place and standard work from home roof stuff.
Yeah, Uncle Joe, you're right on the remote piece. We all probably take it for granted how lucky we are to have that and the flexibility, because I didn't realize it for a long time, what a privilege that is. And then when I've spent time with people that don't work remote, the envy that they're like, I've spent time with people and they've like really wanted to change their whole careers. Like I know you came from a hospitality background. I've spent time with people that have come from a hospitality background, and obviously you can't work in hospitality remote.
Yeah, you can't.
It just doesn't work. And yeah, no, it makes you realize how lucky we are. I tend to find that more working remote, and I do the same as you, by the way. I'm in the Middle East at the minute and I only recruit in the US. So you have a bit of a gap in the morning. I have a huge gap in the morning, but it's great for productivity. But I find that I end up just working insane hours. But I like it, and I like that gap in the morning as well. It's good for getting stuff done. Definitely.
It is, where nobody's bothering you and you can just have that clear mind and get going. Although I have realized lately my brain doesn't really get going, like really ready to rock until like later in the day now. And I think it's because of that.
Okay.
And so next thing it's 2:00 and I'm like in the thick of it, ready to go. And then next thing I know, it's 5:00. But no, I agree. I do tend to work. I tend to give, because I have flexibility in my work, I do respect some flexibility outside of work hours, right? Because again, like inside of work hours, for the most part, I'm on. But there is, again, flexibility. I can go run to my son's school if he forgot something at home, and I'll do that, and I will prioritize it. But so therefore, if I get that call while we're about to sit down for dinner, I do get everybody set and I take the call real quick. Because again, sometimes it requires that you just have to know when you turn it on and respect that you're turning it on sometimes. Just making sure you're not doing it all the time. Because then, your family will feel that pain and they're going to be like, where are you? Oh, can you come back?
Yeah.
My husband and I were both working from home for a few years, and he just had to start going back in the office 3 days a week. It's in fact what changes a lot. Like even just the prep for the next day, like you have to spend an hour or two just making sure you have everything ready to get ready for work tomorrow. So you can get to the train, so you can get to the office by that certain time and get out of there by that certain time because you got to pick the kid up or something. Like it shifts the whole dynamic and productivity of work. So I know some people think you're more productive in the office. We still see a dip in that productivity level because he gets way more done when he works from home this couple days a week.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I just take it for granted now. I literally just get up and start working. I couldn't imagine having the commute and stuff like that. I think you have to be the right sort of person, because I do know some people and they just haven't got the discipline to work remotely. You need to be someone that actually really wants to get stuff done. But I think providing you are, and I think from a company stance, if your company's always been remote and they're quite intentional about it, I see companies doing really well. Where I see problems is when I've been hiring for a company and they're fully remote, and then the founder changes his or her mind. There's no, we're all going back to the office. Then they change their mind again. That is so destructive. You've got to set your stall out, stick to it, believe in a certain model. I think I've seen both of it. When companies change their mind, big problems.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot in the big companies, right?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, you've got the house to yourself. You've got a free reign of the house when you're working remotely most of the time, then, which is probably nice as well.
It is nice now, yeah, because when my husband does work from home, he works downstairs. I'm on phone calls all the time, so I'll close my door. He doesn't have a door. So what that has done to me is it limits me to my office. If he's not here, I'll take my computer downstairs. I'll work from my counter. I'll take it outside, like whatever. I have a little more free range. But yeah, when he's here, I feel like I have to be more quiet.
Cool. Is what I want to talk about. So over the years, like basically every position you've had, you've progressed and been promoted, sometimes even on multiple occasions. And obviously, like when I look back at coming from a bartender to where you are now, like that serious progression, like what do you think enabled you to get from being a bartender to being a COO? Like what's enabled you to get there where others can't? And what's enabled you to keep getting promotions basically at every employer you've ever been with?
Yeah, no, I guess it's a lot of things. I think like you stated at first, like working in hospitality, if people who stay in hospitality, especially food and beverage, and who progress or at least are happy there, it takes a certain zhuzh. You have to be okay with the grind. You have to have the ability for critical thinking quickly, because especially if you think of a bartender too, in the environment that I worked in when I was bartending, it was a 5-star resort. And I was serving tables as well as tending bar. So it's not like the bartender where you're just behind the bar giving drinks to the server. So you had to do all the things. But you had to be able to think on your feet very quickly. And again, when you're serving alcohol, it's a different dynamic of customer behavior that you deal with and how you have to interact. And so there's a lot. I think that really prepares you for a certain level of dedication in your everyday and how you interact with people and different personalities. Not only did I work in hospitality, I studied it. So that's what I studied in college.
Wow.
And I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was working in food and beverage when it was time to figure out college. And I was like, I'm not going to go to school. I'll just work and make money. And my parents were like, yeah, you try. So I don't even know what I want to be. And they were like, we like working with people, right? And I was like, yeah, I like working with people. And they were like, then do hospitality. And I was like, okay. And so what that gave me was the understanding of business and people. And to have the understanding of how to work in business in general, but understand people is a huge strength that you can apply to any industry and any type of position. And that's why I accepted at the time of, sure, I'll do hospitality, because I felt like it was a well-rounded program that would tee me up to figure life out and shift. And I think my track record has shown that, because there's a certain level of where you accept a certain work ethic in that type of role. You have to be able to manage yourself a lot, especially when you're thinking of bartending and you don't have, again, working at the resort, we rarely had someone overseeing us. They were so busy in the dining room or so busy in the kitchen or so busy with the banquets that the bartenders were just, you had to hold it down. And so I think doing that, you just learn what you have to do and you master it. And then it positions you where people value your contributions. And I've been told time and time again that I become a go-to person. Like, I had a manager told me when I worked at Experis, he was like, your cube is like a Starbucks line. And I was like, what? I almost was offended. I didn't know what he meant. But he was like, no, because people are coming to you for answers. And he was like, and if you always are the answer, you will always be the answer. So I actually had to pull myself back a bit. But also, now let me take it full circle. I told you I love puzzles. So what I'd love to do, figure things out. And people see that. So when other people come up to an issue and they're just like, nah, can't figure it out, I'm like, what do you mean? And so I pull the people together. I have the strong ethics in work and just putting the time in. And then I just have fun trying to figure it out. So that has positioned me to where people have seen that I figure things out and I take ownership and I move things forward. So I think that's where they oftentimes look to put more responsibility on that.
Yeah, Elise, there's so much there that you mentioned. And by the way, you're the full guest now that I've had on who's at a really senior level, who's working in a cybersecurity company, whether it's an MSP or an MSSP or on an advisory basis, that basically like completely agrees with what you've just said and having that hospitality background. Like, I've had quotes, if you can manage a restaurant or a bar in rush hour, you can handle incident response, you can handle an MSSP environment. And by the way, you guys and girls make it look so easy, because when I go to London, before Brexit, they had the best people in the bars and the restaurants. And then when Brexit happened, they couldn't staff the bars and the restaurants properly. And I didn't realize how great all the people, I just took it for granted. I'd go to these bars and restaurants and it was great and the service was great. And then Brexit happened and I was like, why is the service so bad? And then people were saying to me that in these bars that we just can't get decent people anymore. It's a real skill, which I completely took for granted before that happened.
It really is. There's a lot. And I think a lot of it is also like, you can't get offended easily if you work in a bar. You just can't. A big challenge that we have in corporate America is people's feelings and sensitivity to words, right? And to certain behaviors. And when you come from that environment where you can be successful, you're managing through so many different personalities. And again, so many different levels of intoxication. And you are essentially on stage. So you might have a bad day. You may get into a fight with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or your kids are acting out. And behind the bar, when you're in that bar room or whatever, and nobody's looking, you're like, but as soon as you walk out, you have to just take it off and be like, how can I help you? And you have to be able to adjust to each different personality without that person feeling any of your feelings. And I
Yeah.
think that just positions someone to be very strong to take further in life and then in the corporate environment too, because again, you're not going to everybody you work with. You're just not. And
No.
there's certain mentalities, behaviors, and characters that are really good for certain roles within a company or an organization. So even though this person, you might not ever hang out with them or really have a full level of respect for them as an individual person in your life, but you can see and respect those skills that they bring to that role and that are very necessary for that position. So that same
Mhm.
person would not be so happy-go-lucky and positive energy like the bartender, right? So as long as you're
Mm.
able to understand that, you can look and understand and value what others are bringing and learn how to work with that. So I think you're just adjusting to each scenario, to each person, to each
Yeah.
situation. And it's hard. Now, I would never say that I didn't have my own moments. There was a time where I worked in the bar. I lost it. I freaked out. I couldn't take it anymore because I was understaffed. I was the only bartender
Oh,
that had to run all around the resort, back and forth to the kitchen. And you're just running circles and everybody wants something from you. Everybody, like your sole job is to give everybody what they need or want right now. And everybody wants it now. And I totally went to the back room in the bar and I just sat in the corner and I was like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it anymore. And literally the chef came and met with me and he was like, you got it. And I was like, I'm not going back out there. I'm done. I've hit my breaking point. I'm done. And he took me home. He drove me home that night. But I'll tell you what, I can tell you that one story of when that happened, right? That was my story of when that happened. Of all the years I was in hospitality and bartended, I have the moment, and everybody's allowed that moment. But those moments help you realize, and again, you get stronger. So it's like you have that, you do work through that. But I do see a lot of value in people who, I always felt like it should be a law. Like some countries made it where you have to go in the military. I think our country should make it where you have to be a bartender at some point in your life before you're allowed to go into any other corporate America job,
yeah.
because it gives you a different perspective on how you treat people and how you work
Yeah,
with them.
yeah, it definitely should. Because listen, it's no coincidence that like the people I'm interviewing on the pod, like yourself, have multiple promotions, reached a certain seniority level that most people, let's be frank, can't get to, and there's a clear pattern emerging, and it's a heavy link between hospitality and the thing you talk. Like, I was thinking then you're talking about that by day ad, and I was thinking then like you were developing, like at the time, you didn't
Oh, yeah.
realize because you were so annoyed, but you were developing some skills there. And it goes back to everything happened to a reason. And that was giving you skills that you're probably still using, like probably daily now as a COO. And I can imagine, you know what it's like in a 5-star resort, there is always someone that is like very hard to handle. So like you probably had to exercise them to the max. But yeah, there's a few things as well. It's like work ethic. It teaches you to work hard. And you mentioned about sensitivity and feelings. Like I just think like working hard gets you absolutely everywhere. And if you can be a bit tougher, and this is almost a little bit semi-controversial to say today, but if you can not play the victim, not be overly sensitive, and work hard and deal with people, if you've got those three things nailed down, like you've got some stuff going on like there in a really good way. But those three things are massive, aren't
I agree. I think there's a thin line between understanding the difference between setting your boundaries and being overly sensitive to other people's boundaries, if you may, or other
they?
people's situations. I think that you made a strong point of playing the victim. Like even when I was in that moment and I knew I hit a point where I broke, to me, like, again, sometimes you only realize it as you look back, but like that was me setting a boundary. I needed that in that moment because I had
Yeah.
overextended myself so much that I just needed to pull back. And I did. And then if I
Mm.
didn't, I don't know what I would have done. I think that's, again, I wasn't a victim to anybody though. I wasn't looking for a way to blame somebody else for that or for what I was going through. And I think that's a big thing, is always looking at what's in your control. And always looking at allowing yourself that moment, though, too. Like some people act like just because you're going to be strong means you can't complain. No, that doesn't mean that. In fact, you can complain. You can have a confidant that you can vent to and just shake it off and just try to work on then, all right, now what's in my control? What can we actually change? Because I'm not going to be a victim to this scenario that's not in my control. I'm going to look and see what is and move the pieces that way. And I think that's a big thing that also, like, One of the things I learned when I was going for my PMP, my project management professional certification, is I was doing all those things in my everyday life, in my work. I just didn't know that's what they called it. I didn't know it was a stakeholder communications. But you naturally do these things. You put these pieces in place. And I guess it's how my brain works, like a puzzle. I'm just putting the pieces in place and how I'm going to approach a scenario. But I think a lot of what you're doing in hospitality, running a bar, what you're doing as a recruiter, running a full life cycle of a recruitment process is the same thing as project management. And so that enables someone for a lot of success in their life, because what you're doing is always evaluating a risk, and you're putting together, even if it's not very constructed process, in your head, you've already put together a way that you're going to respond to this risk. So that's what enables you to be successful in every little aspect of your job or managing a task or operations. And so that was something that sort of sealed the deal for me on really having an understanding of how all the pieces come together, was now seeing it in the project management aspect and going, I've been doing this my whole life. I had no idea. I've been pimping my whole life, but now I'm a big PAMP.
Cool. And by the way, like for everyone listening, or at least it's saying, like the project management skills, and you mentioned critical thinking skills 10 minutes ago, like I'm getting approached by companies, especially companies where it's high touch, like MSP or MSSP environments, like the thing that they're all missing and that they're often unable to find when combined with the technical skills is they struggle to find people that have got the technical skills and the critical thinking skills and the project management skills, and essentially can be organized and keep on top of things. Like it's just so important. I think that, I don't know if the critical thinking skills and everything you're talking about, I think you almost have to have been through. I don't think you can read a book and learn what you've just described there. I think you've got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. The hands-on is important. And I think it's important to make sure that you are learning from each experience, because when you just harp on whatever didn't go well, then you just get stuck there. But I agree. It's important to have actually experienced it than just studying it, because one of the cool parts about what we did at Cylance, and one of the things that our VP there, why he hired the specific individuals he did for the engagement manager role, is because of what you just described. Because it's not even just the project management, the critical thing, it's also the people, being able to manage people. And again, where sometimes a project manager will get frustrated with some of those technical folks that really just don't have all those pieces figured out. And I just remind my team, that's job security for us. Because if they were able to figure all that out and do the technical stuff, we don't have a job. They don't need us. So there's that glass half full, but also it's my old boss, who is also my boss now. I worked for Corey White at Cylance. He hired me there, and then he's the CEO and founder of Cyvatar. But what he saw, what he looked for in the engagement managers was people who came out of hospitality and recruiting, because what he saw was, and a lot of us were mothers. There's a bit of nurturing, but also what I like to call is like you hug it. Like you find a problem and then you hug it. And you put your arms all the way around it and you figure it out. And so he saw a lot of value in our team members. A lot of people would pick around like they're all women in the engagement managers. And it wasn't like we wouldn't hire a man. It just so happened that a lot of us, it worked really well for us. It being at home, being able to work from home and work these crazy hours, but we were able to get it in where it made sense to us. But also we had that, again, that ability to think critically, to manage many things at once. Like we used to be on 3 calls at one time. We would have an incident response on one screen. We would have a threat zero, which was when we would do the configuration on another. And then we would have something on our phone. And we somehow mastered turning up the volume and down on each one. Really scary and awesome. But again, it takes somebody who can juggle all of that with some grace while caring about how people are being impacted through that process. Because an incident response is like your house is on fire. And people are very erratic and they think they're making the right decision, but they're just trying to figure out what to do. So you need someone who can help with like structure and a soft hand and care. So yeah, we do found that women who came from these certain backgrounds teachers too. That was another common kind of skill in there. It was like teachers, recruiters, Like we tend to see those types of backgrounds to position you with a certain degree of patience.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, Elise, that's really good. I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions. I know you're busy with time, so I'm keeping my eye on the clock, but you're sparking so many things off in my mind because the women being good at it and the mums being, because we've been trying to look for someone who I can trust to handle our relationships, who's organized, who's got critical thinking, and someone who advised me, who's also got another recruitment agency that's done really well. He was saying to me, look, I've had loads of success with mums working from home. Basically, exactly what you've just said. He swears by the success behind his whole agency, like particularly on the delivery side, when you're dealing with multiple clients, you've got searches where all the clients want the people yesterday. Listen, they'll smash it. Maybe like you're sparking some internal recruitment strategies off in my mind as well.
I might have people for you too. I'll give you some names.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sounds good. But yeah, it sounds like your founder's got it now as well. I've had to recruit for years and start a podcast to realize this all out. It sounds like he had it all sussed out years ago by the sounds of it.
Yeah, he would tell me some interesting stories how he would end up recruiting someone. And sometimes it was just talking to someone he sat next to on the plane and being like, I'm trying to hire. And then they're like, oh, I got someone. And then like how I met him was at an ISSA event in Charlotte. I was going to recruit and he was presenting there and we bumped into each other in the hall. We were both lost looking for where we were going. But I was working really hard, of course, recruiting and closing a deal. So he had asked me to be a volunteer for his presentation. I was like, sure, if I'm in there, I'll help you. But if I'm not, sorry, I got work to do. And he was like, wow, I certainly wasn't in there. But when he walked out, I was sitting on the floor at my computer and I just stayed network with him, right? After that, I would check in, see if there was anything. I didn't know if I could recruit for him or what it could be, or if I could get some candidates out of him. There is a certain degree of where he was able to spot something in somebody through some of those interactions enough to where he was able to see the spark that he knew was needed for that role. And so he called me a few weeks later and he was like, I don't have any recruiter positions, but I want to talk to you about a project manager. And he was like, no, I'm talking about you. Interesting to not shy away from those opportunities when you're just bumping into someone who's lost or sit next to that person on the plane and open up about your search or the challenges up to see. You never know who they might know that can point you in that right direction.
Definitely, this is the thing, and just keeping an open mind. And I think as well, with how busy the online space is getting and AI and automation, that organic way of just going out to your network, it's always been valuable, but I think it's getting more because it's just getting so busy online. And it's who can I trust? I don't really know. Everyone's telling me they're great. Everyone looks the same. It's forces you back to your network all the time, I'm finding.
Yeah, and do you hear the AI I've been hearing more and more about it lately about trying to get through the AI on resumes, just to get your resume to the next level to be reviewed by human eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it before. So everything we do is outbound or just ringing people I know. So we don't have that. But I've had it before where I've been engaged on a search. I spoke about it on another podcast, but I've been engaged on a search. They've really struggled to get coverage on the role. And I've rang someone I know who I know can do the role because I already know that candidate. They've gone, I've already applied and the ATS keeps rejecting me. And I'm like, you are joking. And I know they can do it because I know them. And I'm like, wow, this is when you know it's broken when you're at that stage. But maybe it'll level back out and maybe things will get better and AI will get refined as it goes on. But AI's come onto the scene. Everyone's got excited, including myself. We've all got really excited. And I think most companies have. And there's this massive pot of money with certain companies for AI, and it's maybe it needs to settle down. Cool, but it needs to be good. And I like your point as well, because I know I mentioned about being strong, and you talked about you have to set those boundaries. And I think sometimes being strong is actually going, I can't do this, or maybe sometimes being strong is actually having a cry and actually being able to admit that you've had a cry. That actually takes strength to admit that, rather than just trying to bat everything off and being like that. And then that's when people can actually get into some difficulties, but actually being strong enough to go, I just can't. That is strength in itself, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes you often feel like you have to try to meet every challenge and you feel weak if you're not, rather than just being comfortable saying, hey, this is not right. I'm not your person for this. I will attempt, I will do the best I can, but this is the expectation that I can meet because I understand where I am most successful. Or just say, no, you won't take it on. It's rare that I don't take on a challenge or a project. I think that's a good and bad strength and weakness of mine. bosses that I work well with are ones that will allow me to have that moment of have a little like freak out moment, and they don't get overwhelmed by that because they understand that there's a lot of great energy and passion behind my work. And sometimes that comes out.
I can imagine it.
Then all of a sudden, after I realize this guy's not falling chicken little, I'm like, now I can figure this out.
Cool.
So.
Elise, we could definitely talk.
Yes.
We could definitely 100%. We should maybe do this again. This has been a short episode for two people that talk a lot. We maybe need to do another one.
I'd love to, yeah. Have to cut it short in cybersecurity. Never goes to plan.
No, it's been a really nice chat. It's been a short, punchy show, but it's been really good. No, Elise, thanks. It's been a really enjoyable chat with you as always.
Thanks for having me, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. Let me know.